Julia wrapped herself more tightly in her coat as the heavy snowfall threatened to put her completely to sleep. At last, she reached her destination, the bridge over the swift Red River. She was almost completely frozen. The only thing that kept her moving was the intense desire to get it all over with. Julia had counted on the shock of her suicide to make her ex-fiancé feel guilt, shame, and horror at her act, and he would be inconsolable in his grief. Murder, suicide. Her fiancé, his new mistress, and herself was the second option. After suicide alone, the deciding factor was the anticipated duration of his suffering. Julia hoped he would live a long life, and the memories of what he had done to her would haunt him all that time. The instant realization by him right before she pulled the trigger that he was about to be shot would bring her little comfort. It took the lone young woman some time to get around the iron railings and steel girders. The designers of the bridge had clearly wanted to make suicide attempts difficult. Julia was sweating under the parka by the time she got to a point where she could jump into the swift river water in such a way that she wouldn't hit a pole on the way or get stuck on one of the concrete bases used to anchor the support posts. She was exhausted, so she paused, leaning against a beam to gather her strength and courage. A strong gust of cold wind quickly turned her sweat into an ice bath. Julia knew she needed to get this over with as soon as possible. Hanging from the ledge with one hand, she shouted as loudly as possible into the sky, "You Hank!" Just as Julia was about to jump, she heard a man nearby scream, "You almost scared me to death! Who the hell are you? And what the are you doing here?" Julia nearly slipped and fell over from shock when she heard him. She looked to her left and saw a man sitting on another ledge similar to the one she was on. She yelled back, "Stay where you are! Don't you dare try to talk me out of jumping! You won't be able to stop me! This is the only way out for me! What the hell are you talking about? I'm not trying to talk you out of anything. I came here to jump on my own. Get out of here and leave me alone. You're a copycat. I came here first. If anyone needs to leave, it's you." There was silence in the standoff while the wind and cold penetrated their clothes. More and more, the man finally spoke. "God damn it, if they find out that two of us committed suicide, it'll divert attention away from my death. And the reason I committed suicide, I want my wife to suffer as much as possible. Your suicide will confuse things. I'm sorry I got mad at you, but please go away and let me jump alone. You can come back another time. I don't think I can do that. I have to jump tonight. I'm not sure I have the courage to do it again. Besides, I have nowhere to go. That cheating bastard kicked me out after thinking for a bit. The man suggested I have an idea. You can go to my house. My wife left to live with her lover. I'll give you the key to my house. Oh, if it's not too much trouble, could you take my car to my house? It's parked at the far end of the bridge. I hadn't thought of it before, but I really don't want to leave it here. Someone could accidentally crash into it. I don't want anyone else but my wife to suffer because of me." Julia started to cry. "Damn you! You ruined all my plans. I ruined your plans. You ruined my plans. Everything I wanted to do tonight is all screwed up now. In fact, nothing I've wanted to do lately has gone according to my plan. Why should tonight be any different? Look, we're both freezing out here. Why don't we both get out of here and figure out what to do? We can always jump in later if we want to. If you don't mind, I could really use a cup of hot coffee. I'm really cold. Where's your car? I walked here after I left my car at the diner down the road. I think it's still open if you want to go there." "My God, lady, you must be frostbitten by now. Let him get in my car and go to the diner for coffee, all right?" "Uh-huh." Julia had a hard time getting down from the bridge. By the time she reached the road, the man had already pulled up beside her in his car, luckily for her. By the time she got in, his car's heat was already on. It took Julia a few minutes to warm up. Although her fingers and toes, nose and ears were still feeling the effects of the freezing weather, she looked at the man and answered the unasked question. Julia, he looked back at her and smiled. Kyle, when they reached the warm 50-style diner, there were only 3 other customers. The large, full-breasted woman behind the counter greeted them with a wide smile. She was wearing a uniform and a name tag that read, "Betty, hey, what brings you two out in this terrible weather? Bee-bird watching." When she smiled, her lipstick was visible on her teeth. Kyle nonchalantly replied, "Suicide, we came to jump off the bridge." Julia was shocked at his willingness to reveal their intentions. He smirked, looking at the expression on her face. Betty, the waitress, nonchalantly replied, "It happens a lot around here these days." My advice is that you should wait until it's warmer and light enough for people to see you if you jump at night. It could be weeks before your bodies are found. What's the point of suicide if no one knows about it? So you two, is it one of those lovers thingies committing suicide together to be forever united in the afterlife? Julia spoke. No, we just met. It was just a weird coincidence. I was planning to jump alone until he showed up and ruined my plans. Betty reacted seriously. Heck, I was just kidding about you two committing suicide. Did you two really try to jump off a bridge? Kyle said. Just kidding, gotcha, that's good. You know, they say it's bad luck to jump off a bridge on an empty stomach. You want to see the menu, or do you guys know what you want? I'll have a coffee with sugar. Julia, coffee with lots of milk and sugar. How about some pie? I bake them myself. I guarantee my apple pie and homemade ice cream are the best you've ever tasted. Julia noticed. I can't. I'm watching my weight. Kyle started laughing out loud. What, you were going to kill yourself and you're worried about counting calories? Julia grinned. That doesn't make sense, does it, Miss Betty? I've changed my mind. Mind, I'll have that wonderful apple pie with 2 scoops of ice cream, please. Kyle responded, same for me. A few minutes later, the 2 WBE jumpers were sitting across from each other in a booth where the gaps in the vinyl bench had been sealed with duct tape. The apple pie a la mode was delicious, just as advertised. Betty couldn't help but tease the couple. You know, everyone says my pie is to die for if you two decide to jump. Could you leave a note saying that my apple pie was the reason you jumped? All 3 of them? Giggled. Kyle got serious and asked Julia, do you mind if I ask why you decided to attempt suicide, Hank? My boyfriend. Sorry, let it be ex-boyfriend, and I were exclusive for 3 years now. I know I was the only one who was exclusive. Either way, I was sure he was my one and only. I moved in with him 2 years ago when we got engaged. After a year, I started asking when we would get married. He kept saying it wasn't the right time yet and got angry every time I said anything about marriage. I found out why one night when I got back to our apartment after work, my fiancé was sitting in the living room with a curly blonde girl with huge breasts and an ass practically in his lap. He announced that he had decided to move in with his new girlfriend and kick me out. I had no idea he had another girlfriend until then. I guess my tits and ass weren't big enough for him anyway. It was his apartment, so I had no legal grounds to stop him from pointing me out the door. I begged and gravelled and cried. I cried a lot as I walked out. Hank laughed, saying that he had also already cleaned out our joint bank accounts. I was devastated. I had nowhere to go and no money to get anywhere. I was too ashamed to call anyone I knew. Even more so, I couldn't call my parents because they didn't like Hank from the beginning. They told me I was a fool for moving in with him without being married. The prospect of hearing I told you so was unbearable for me. I felt bad enough as it was at first, wanted to get revenge on him and his new, but I didn't have the guts or the gun to kill them. Then I decided that the best way I could get back at them was to haunt them for the rest of my life like a ghost by committing suicide. I thought the easiest way was to jump off a bridge. What are you going to do now? I don't know. Now that you stopped me, I'm back where I was when I left his apartment. I have nowhere to go and I don't know what to do. I opened up my soul to you now. What's your story? Kyle began with a deep sigh. Carol and I dated for several years and got married as soon as we graduated from college tonight. I came home after work and saw another car in the driveway. I had no idea what was in store for me in the living room. I saw my wife, Carol, sitting next to a strange man. Her packed suitcases were waiting by the door. I barely had time to say what the... Before she yelled at me to shut up and listen, Kyle. I thought I loved you when we were dating, but what I really wanted more than anything was to get away from my parents. When you and I started having sex, it felt so good that I thought I had everything good sex, and a chance to get away from my parents is why I agreed to get married. However, it didn't take long for our lives to become SKUCHO, as the boring years of living with you became more and more boring. I decided that I deserved more than just being content with you. I didn't know what I deserved until Daryl came to work for our company. Our personalities matched almost immediately. It didn't take us long to bond when we had sex. It was amazing compared to what you and I had, Kyle. You're a nice guy, but Daryl is handsome, charming, smart, rich, and a real stud in bed. Well, he's everything you're not believe me by. Me leaving our marriage now, I'm doing you a favor, even though you may not think so. Now my leaving now gives you plenty of time to find a woman who will settle for nice and boring. I'm leaving tonight. I've already taken half the money out of our account and savings. You can have the house. Our lawyers can work on the rest. Carolyn the Creon took her suitcases and left. Oh, I'll send you the address to send the divorce papers to. I advise you to be fair to me, or you'll regret it. No goodbye. No final hug. No goodbye kiss. I stood there in shock long after she and he had left, like you, Julia. I decided that instead of murder, I would get revenge by blaming her for causing my suicide. Now I wonder if she would have cared at all if I were dead. Heck, she might have been happy because she would have inherited all my assets after I died. I have something else to think about, Kyle. Does that offer to stay at your house still stand? I need a place to stay until I figure out what to do. I mean, if you don't mind. Well, they say misery loves company, and we're both miserable, so why not just follow me in your car? Kyle, thank you. You're welcome. They went to his house. Julia was shown the guest bedroom and bathroom they would have to share. Julia hadn't brought her pajamas with her, so Kyle gave her one of his university sweatshirts. They drank quite a bit of wine before they felt drowsy, given the degree of emotion they had been on at the beginning of the evening. The fall to exhaustion was hard and fast. They talked the next day over morning coffee. Julia asked if Kyle would agree to go with her to pick up some of her things from the apartment she shared with Hank. She didn't think he'd be rude, but figured that if Kyle had been there, he wouldn't have done anything about it. Kyle agreed. Julia called Hank and told him she would stop by to pick up her things. A woman with a wagon is easier on the Maillard, was his reply. Tears came to her eyes, but she managed not to cry. She mumbled something about the lost years. When they got to the apartment, Julia and Kyle were met by Hank, and his new friend Susan. Hank announced that he had put the rest of Julia's things in garbage bags. I didn't have enough clean bags, so there might be trash in some of the bags. That was enough for Kyle. He got an idea. Kyle yelled out to Susan Tiffany, "Baby, is that really you? Oh my God, you look gorgeous. How long has it been?" He walked over, hugged, lifted, and spun the frightened blonde around. She broke free of his grip and pushed him away. "What the hell are you doing? My name is Susan, not Tiffany, and I've never seen you before in my life." "Tiffany, how can you not remember? You used to say every time we met that I was your all-time favorite John. So now you're Susan. I decided Tiffany was your professional name anyway. I never knew your real name until now. I'm glad to see you've settled down with one man, Lucky." I know it's very hard to leave a profession." Hank shouted. "What the hell is he talking about, Susan? What's the story with him being your John? Were you a prostitute?" No, I was never a prostitute. Ian's lying." Kyle intervened. "Oops, my bad. Tiff, I figured he was your boyfriend, that you had a crush on my feet, asterisk. We better get your stuff and run." Julia, Susan demanded. "Wait, tell him I'm not some named Tiffany. Tell him I'm not a hooker. I'm sorry. Hank, obviously this must be a case of mistaken identity. Come to think of it, she only looks a little bit like Tiffany." "I made a stupid mistake. I apologize, Kyle, Julia," and the trash bags quickly disappeared to the sound of loud swearing in the apartment. Apparently from the sound of it, at least one piece of glassware had already bought the farm that evening, and there was still the whole night ahead of them as soon as they jumped in the car and sped off. Julia asked, was Hank's girlfriend a prostitute? "I don't know that." And with a wide grin, Kyle added, "And at least for a while, Hank will be wondering that they both laughed." Julia kissed Kyle on the cheek and said, "Thank you, Kyle, for getting a little revenge on me and making me laugh. I didn't think I'd ever be able to laugh again." They went back to his house and celebrated the occasion. Julia put her clothes away and went back to join Kyle on the couch in the living room. She poured some wine while Kyle drank a beer. They began discussing work schedules and chores around the house at the end. Julia giggled. "Julia, now, what's so funny us? We sound like an elderly married couple." She changed her voice. "It's getting late, honey. Let's go to bed, but I warn you I have a headache," Kyle replied in an emphatically gruff voice. "You always say that I have more sex with my hand than with you." He then turned serious. "This dialogue is too close to reality in my case. I haven't had much of a sex life in the last 6 months, although apparently my wife has." He looked sad. "I'm sorry I brought it up, Kyle. I hope you don't think I was trying to tease you about your lack of a sex life." "Stop right there, Julia. We're both fresh victims of being abandoned. We're both fragile and vulnerable right now. I hate to mention this, but it may not be easy for us to live in the same house, given our emotional state right now. That being said, I don't think it would be a good idea for us to quickly start a new relationship with each other or anyone else. I admit that the idea of revenge sex sounds good, And you're certainly attractive enough to seduce me. But I'd feel guilty because I took advantage of you. I think sex should be done out of love, not out of mutual self-pity. Let's just take our time and see what happens between us without any pressure right now. I'm only interested in friendship and helping each other heal and move on. Okay, Kyle, I'll try to stop bothering you as soon as possible, please. I didn't say that to hurt your feelings. I want you to take your time and do what you think is right for you. He paused in frustration. Damn, I can't seem to do anything right with a woman. He began to cry. Julia grabbed his hand. I'm sorry, Kyle. Apparently I'm not very good at dealing with a man either. Your idea about taking things slow is a good one. We have the same goals. I want to be your friend, too. She hugged him and headed for her bedroom. Then she turned and said thank you for the compliment. The next few weeks went well indeed. It took some time to get used to each other's habits. They spent a lot of time talking about each other's families and what had happened in their recent failed relationship. The most serious discussions were about whether or not they felt guilty, and if so, to what extent they were the reason their relationship with Hank and Carol had ended. Both assured each other that he or she was certainly not to blame for the most part, but both still felt some guilt, that it was over having someone to talk to who had an idea of how the breakup felt helped. Every time Kyle received his divorce letter, Julia was there to comfort him. They made plans to celebrate when his divorce was finalized. Every time something reminded Julia of the good times with Hank, she would start to cry. Kyle would put his shoulder up and sympathize. She seemed to come to her senses more quickly each time episodes like this were becoming more and more rare. Kyle was grateful to Julia. In many ways, her income helped make up for the loss of income due to Carol's departure. It gave him money for a lawyer and the time he needed to fight Carol's unexpected settlement demands. It was obvious that she or Daryl were trying to get Kyle to agree to a settlement favorable to her, in hopes that, in his frustration just to end it all, he would give in it. Looked like they weren't done bullying him yet. Kyle also realized how much the woman's presence in the house had helped him. He was lucky to have a woman who seemed to care about him. It didn't take him long before he believed he could share his innermost thoughts without fear of negative criticism. The only problem he had with her living in the same house with the same bathroom as him was that every now and then he would see her partially clothed and feel aroused. She was a very attractive woman. Julia and Kyle had established a routine that seemed to suit both of them. They didn't go out to eat very often, as they were both saving for when Julia moved out, and then they wouldn't have a financial partner to cover their living expenses. One of their favorite things to do was watch old movies, eat popcorn, and drink wine and beer. One such evening, the doorbell rang. Julia went to the door and opened it. It was Carol. Carol was shocked to see a girl in the house and wearing only an oversized sweatshirt and panties. Julia asked, "Can I help you?" Carol snorted. "Yes, you can get out of my way, prostitute." She walked past Julia on her way to the living room, where she saw Kyle sitting on the sofa for two in gym shorts and a t-shirt. Carol quickly assessed the situation well. "It certainly didn't take you long to get over me, or maybe not. I bet you two were doing it even before I moved out." Julia walked over to the already standing Kyle and put her arm around his shoulders. "Actually, I have you to thank for us being together. We met at the diner the night you left. After chatting for a while, we immediately realized we had similar interests, and the incident faded into the past. You know, Carol revenge sex can be as good a sex act as, and I was so happy with him that night that I've been living with him ever since." She reached up and kissed Kyle passionately, and then continued Carol. "I was hoping that someday I would see you, and I could thank you for letting Kyle go. I admit that I was a little wild in college, but it gave me an experience that I can carry into the bedroom. I can honestly say that Kyle is the best thing I've ever had and ever will have, if there's anything I can say about it." Carol was seething with anger. "Get out, Kyle, and I need to talk." Kyle was about to object when Julia said, "I don't mind, I'm not jealous of her." Julia kissed Kyle again, this time even more passionately than before. As she walked down the stairs, she looked back at Kyle. "Baby, what flavor do you want to try tonight? We're out of strawberries," Kyle improvised. "Peach, you got it, lover boy. Don't take too long. I'd hate to start without you." "Oh, and Carol, nice to meet you and be a stranger." Okay, Julia walked up the stairs and then backed up as she disappeared from Carol and Kyle's sight. Carol started at once. "Kyle, what's wrong with you bringing some off the street into our house? I hope you asked her to show you her." Venial disease reports. I hear girls like her need to be tested every 2 weeks. You're wearing a condom with her, aren't you? Kyle ignored her remark. Okay, Carol, why are you here? I told Daryl that I needed to pick up a couple more of my things that I left here. Honestly, I wanted to see how you were doing and how you felt about me after you had some time to calm down. I said a bunch of hurtful things, but they were to Daryl. He was a little insecure and wasn't completely sure that I really wanted to be with him despite what I said in front of Daryl. That's not really what I meant. I missed you, Kyle. She moved toward him for physical contact, but Kyle pulled away Carol. I admit that I was very upset about both the betrayal and the way you let me know how things were going to be. I was about to do something really stupid about it before I met Julia. We instantly became soulmates. Sharing coffee and apple pie at the dinner table. By the way, I can recommend a great apple pie place if you're interested anyway. Carol, I now have a better understanding of what you described that happened between you and Daryl based on my experience with Julia. I no longer envy the fact that you left with your other half, but my sympathy goes no further than that I'm not giving you more than your fair share of our assets in the divorce, Kyle. I admit I was hoping you'd be miserable without me. I wanted to offer you to stay married, but to let me live with Daryl and see you on the side now that I've met Julia. I know I couldn't bear to see you with another woman. I guess I have to choose between you and Daryl. I just can't, Carol. You have no reason to worry about making a choice. Coming back to me is not an option. I don't know what will happen between me and Julia, but she helped me move on without you. If you still have any feelings for me, stop fighting and work out a divorce. But Kyle, I love you, and I loved you past tense. Carol left in tears. Julia went back into the living room and hugged Kyle for a while. They stayed in each other's arms. Kyle finally pulled away and said, "Let him go to bed." Julia whispered, "Can I go to bed with you and just cuddle? That's what I was hoping for, thank you. I'm shaking from the experience. Thank you for what? For touching Carol's heart." They both smirked, by the way. What were you talking about when you said we were out of strawberries? No more of a curiously obscene thing. Do you really have a peach flavor for, you know? No, but who says I don't taste better naturally after a couple months? Julia decided it was time to do something about it. Either she had to move out or suggest to Kyle that they become close. It was killing her to be so close and not be touched the way she wanted to be touched. She wanted him to know she wasn't so fragile anymore, so he'd have to worry about not hurting her feelings. Then she received a phone call. It shook her to the core. Julia was sitting on the couch in a comic state. When Kyle walked in, he saw Julia and asked what was wrong. She said Hank called, he apologized, and wants me to come back. You're not going to. Are you after what he did to you? I don't know, I've had some good years with him, and I'm going to have to leave you soon anyway. Have to leave me? Why have I done something to offend you? Did I scare you? I can't help it if I want to touch you. I'm so attracted to you. Where the hell does that come from? I've given you every hint I could think of that I wanted more. I didn't think you wanted to be intimate with me, then to hell with hints. He grabbed Julia in his arms and began caressing every inch of her body as they tried to remove their clothes. Julia paused to speak. You're right to hell with the innuendos after 3 rounds of sex. Julia spoke first. I guess I was right when I told Carol you were the best sex I've ever had. How about you? No, the best sex I've ever had will be the next time we have sex, in about 15 minutes. Julia called Hank back and told him his ship had sailed and was sinking fast. She had the best man she could ever have, especially in the bedroom. You're lying. You know you want my... Julia hung up the phone the next day. Julia called to say she was running late. She offered to buy food on the way home shortly after he hung up. There was a knock on the door. It was a battered, crying Carol. Once again, she burst into the living room. She clung to Kyle, who tried to calm her down. Carol, what's wrong? She sniffed her nose as she spoke. Daryl hit me. I got mad at what he did and told him I was stupid to leave you for him. I'd never seen him so angry. He said I should come back to you, but with a little physical change, he slapped me, kicked me, and yanked my hair. Finally, I was able to back away and ran outside. He didn't follow me, but came to the door to yell, "Good riddance, I was never going to marry you anyway. I just wanted to separate you from Kyle, and I did, Kyle. I'm so ashamed. Can we stop the divorce? Are you still with that girl, Julia? Don't you miss what I did for you? Let me show you." She started to undress. Kyle was trying to keep her from doing so. When Julia walked in, it seemed to her that he was helping Carol undress. She turned to leave. Kyle shouted, "Don't take another step, Julia. I'm not going to let you walk away thinking I'm cheating on you. Turn around and listen to what I'm about to say." Julia was still crying, but stopped. He grabbed his soon-to-be ex-wife, Carol. "Your time with me is over. You're not coming back here, and I'm not joining you anywhere else. We'll be divorced in a couple days. Thanks to Julia, I'm getting on with my life. You need to mind your own business. I'll help financially to get you started in a new place if you need to get away from Daryl." "Could I stay?" "No, my future wife, and I don't want to help you that much," Julia gasped. "Future wife? Does that mean yes? Julia, will you marry me?" I apologized for the atmosphere I wasn't before he could finish his sentence. Julia's tongue was in his throat. Carol took the hint and silently walked away. A couple days later, the newlyweds were sitting on the couch, admiring her new engagement ring. They talked about children and whether they should move to a bigger house as they made themselves comfortable. The local news started on the TV after reading the footnote to the segment that had just started. Shocked. Julia shrieked, "Kyle, look at this." The reporter announced a local couple jumped or fell off the Red River Bridge this morning. It appears there was some sort of confrontation. Witnesses said they noticed two people on the bridge yelling about who had the right to jump first. Apparently, someone in the crowd started yelling, "Jump, jump, jump." Apparently, they began to struggle, and soon they fell or jumped into the river from a height of 125 feet. The swift current probably carried their bodies away. They never surfaced as far as observers could tell. Channel 5 News interviewed a waitress at a local diner who said the pair had been in her diner earlier in the day. "Betty, tell us what happened." "Well, they came in, had coffee, and ate my apple pie. I think I heard names Hank and Carol anyway. They said my pie was so good it was worth dying for." Next thing I know, they swallowed jumping off that damn bridge. I thought they were just kidding. Although my apple pie is really good. Thanks, Betty. Another day with weird news and free advertising from Ray Strickland of Channel 5 News. Julia and Kyle looked over at each other. They had no idea how to react. I think most stories start at the beginning, but here, I think it can be better explained by starting at the end. So here I am at the Waffle Cafe at 3:30. The girls 2 tables behind me are complaining about their boss again. The 3 girls directly in front of me are trying to stuff themselves with toast, and Gardy, the waitress, has just filled my glass. Then a shadow fell over me. "Well, Max," my voice was full of sarcasm, "I was wondering when you were going to show up." Max was Maxwell K.S., my former father-in-law, E. Chris. Can we talk, damn? I'd known this man for over 3 years now, and this was the first time I'd ever been appreciated by him because I saw someone different. Not super confident and all-controlling. I needed to hear it and see it. "Sit down, Max, you're scaring the kids." And he sat down across from me. The girls looked at us with a surprised look. You see, Max has always been a strong man, but both in body and mind, after all. He owns the biggest warehouse in the county and the only real trucking business within 100 miles around. When some 15 years ago, the local economy went south, Max stayed afloat, and many people owe him their livelihoods, their homes, and heck, their lives take into account also the fact that he's 6'6" in tall, plus he still looks like he works in the big house and is someone people didn't mess with. Max sat across from me in a separate booth. Damn, he looked like unshaven circles around his eyes. Insomnia at the car house? Poor kids, Chris. I know you're hurting, but can't you and Kelly get over this little incident and little incident? I forced myself to shut up with an effort, even though my heart seemed to be beating like it was about to burst out of my chest. My hands were sweating, and I fought the urge to strangle the man sitting in front of me. It took me a few seconds to calm down, reminding myself that I didn't want to fight him. I wanted to win. As I calmed down, I noticed that everyone seemed to be trying their best to ignore us. But damn it, I knew they wanted to listen. They wanted dirt. Well, why not give it to them? Okay, Max, what part of this incident do you want me to forget? I asked. Not raising my voice, but not trying to whisper. Either it was just one time wrong, Max, it went on for years, and you know it, she's never done this before, for she's never cheated. Come on, Max, you want to hear the whole truth? Fine, I picked up my biscuit when I first met her and tried to get her number. She deliberately flaunted every guy who wanted to sleep with her as well as the ones who had already slept with her. Why, Max? Why was she doing that? She tried to push you away, Chris, but you defeated her. And nope, I said, interrupting him as I spread apple jam on my toast. She was trying to see if I was willing to fight for her, and like an idiot, I gave her the attention she demanded. I took a bite of my cookie and continued. And then she brought me home to introduce me to Dad, and you hated me even then. Hated my politics, hated my career, hated my style and everything. At first I thought it was just Papa Bear growling, but no, you just didn't like me. I wasn't good enough for your precious little girl. I took another bite. The jam was good. Max's jaw went up and down, but the words could get out of his mouth. We both knew I was right, and he couldn't argue with that, but I wanted to live with it. I had to prove to you that I was a good guy, but I couldn't do it. Don't argue with Daddy, just accept what he says and don't say or do anything. Oh, we had a few battle royals over that. And after all that, I just sat back and let you insult me. Tell me, was there such a thing as me humiliating you in front of all your friends, sitting there arguing with you about everything and winning? No, you don't remember that? Hell, I didn't care. I wanted us to stay together. Do you wonder what she was trying to do? See how subservient I was? I took a big sip of my drink, which gave me a chance to scrutinize Max. He hadn't expected this. He wanted me to be hurt and torn. Then he could come up to me begging and crying in his humility to save my marriage. Yes, just like that. Do you know what happened then? She started hanging around with old boyfriends again, telling me they were just friends. I held up my hand to stop Max from rushing to her defense. I know she never cheated back then. Believe me, after I beat up poor little Thomas for grabbing her ass in that bar, they all came to me and said nothing happened. She just... What was that all about, checking up on me again? She wanted to know if I was jealous of her, whether I'd react to her seeing her old lovers guys she'd slept with in her bed in her house. Yeah, well, we broke up after that best 3 months of my life, I'll tell you honestly. I finished my cookie and shook my hands off. Max was silent. I didn't know if it was the realization that she wasn't as innocent as he thought. Then again, maybe he knew, and that was my attitude, but hey. Either way it worked. He wasn't talking well. My dumbass let her talk me into coming back. It was around the time she stopped coming home so late. She did it to be with me more, and things were good, even really good. Then I screwed up by proposing to her. I don't know why I did it. I won the damn ring at a jewelry contest. It didn't mean that much to me, but I did it. And that's when the weird started happening. All these really hot chicks suddenly started swirling around me. They met me at work, at the gym, while shopping everywhere. Well, a lot of pretty girls were okay, but it was not okay when they all started tempting me, making me eat lunch outright, telling me they'd like to me. Heck, even Leanne started doing that one time. She even locked us in the pantry and unzipped her dress. She said she was naked. I fought every instinct God gave me, not to look at her. Told each of them I was engaged in everything, but nothing seemed to work. How damn surprised I was at the wedding preparations when I saw those girls again. They were her friends, relatives, acquaintances from high school. Oh, Leanne even told me she was sorry, but they just must have made sure I wasn't in cheating on poor little Kelly. Did I pass the test? Well, don't you think then on my wedding day I had another test when you made me sign that prenup? If I go through with cheating on your Kelly, I get nothing. Notice, nothing was said about if she cheated on me. I asked you what would happen if she did. Could I be free and understood that was an omen? Huh, Max? Oh, you had your lawyer spell it out. If your girl cheats on me, I get $112,000 in my bank account, keep my clothes, my car, and my little house, which, by the way, I got from my grandparents. I leaned over to Max, but I signed it. Remember, Max? I was able to sign it. And then, what the hell happened last Saturday? First, I get called into to work for 8 goddamn hours because someone decided they'd rather go to a goddamn amusement park than go to work. Make my day hell. But that was just the beginning, and Max, then I get home after work, can't park my car in the driveway, have to park on the street. Why, someone has taken my spot. Have I thought about it much? Well, yes, but not like that thought one of the damn neighbors parked there and Kel never ordered them to get out. So I get home and see Kelly's car that was parked in the driveway. But where was Kelly herself? Kelly, I called out. I'm at home in the bedroom like a lamb. I went up there to ask about the car. But I didn't expect what I saw when I walked into the room, Kelly and this guy in bed together in our bed, in my bed. I was stunned for a second, and then I screamed, "What's going on? Silly, isn't it?" I mean, my wife was cheating on me, but right then, I wasn't thinking straight. Oh, honey, I love you, but I have to have more than you're giving me. Don't worry, I'll still sleep with you. It's just sex, and it has nothing to do with you. Damn it, she just said that. So the bastard's all right, sleeps with my wife, and she starts moaning there and stuff while my blood boils. But she went even further, honey. Can you get us something to drink, please? It brought me out of my shock. I'll tell you that you want me to get you two a drink. She was so sweet to her cuckolded friend when smiling, she ordered me, "Yes, do that. Bring something from your beer supply." Damn it, if you're thirsty, you can get your own. I spat out. But you get your own now, don't say that, she mumbled unhappily. You want it and you'll get it, but not from me. No cheating, isn't that what we said before we got married? The little bastard slowed down. Come on, man, don't rock the boat. You're going to get it 4 or 5 nights a week, and hey, you're going to be living in that big house with that nice ass. So just take it. Tell me that again. In the rest of your days, you'll only eat through a tube. I'd never seen a man deflate before. You keep the goddamn house I'm leaving, I shouted. And who the hell did I run into in the hallway? Mike, your damn son. What a twisted family you have, huh? Mike was so eager to help his sister slow down, Chris. It's not like you, what the hell are you doing here? No, forget it. I'm getting out of here. Get out of my way. I tried to walk past him, but he grabbed my arm. Now, I don't like Mike. So when he grabbed me, that's when I did it, Does he feel better now? 1 punch, that's all it took. I swear I was going to try to break his jaw, but I hit him in the neck, dude. If you ever get punched in the throat, you're out of the fight. Then I headed to my room and grabbed my camping backpack. I needed that gear and headed for the door. Mike's feeling better, Chris. The doctors say that great. But really, who cares? I toyed with the toast before continuing. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Kelly ran out of the house as I was leaving, her little robe flapping, and she was screaming up a storm, but hey, she made the bed. Where was I supposed to stay? Well, that turned out to be easy. I still had my old house, and I'd recently finished remodeling it. I hadn't rented it out yet, so I had the perfect place to stay. On Sunday, I drove back to the house to get my stuff. No one was there. Maybe everybody went to church. I don't know. So I grabbed my clothes and anything I might need and went to the Salvation Army to get at least a bed. This floor was too hard. I heard laughter around me as I took a sip of dew, and who was waiting for me when I got back? Your darling little daughter. Well, the bed could stay in the truck. That's all I had until then. Parked the truck and headed for the door to get in. Chris, she yelled. Man! She ran from her car toward me as fast as she could wait. Please, we need to talk. I need to explain everything. Well, that's all I heard, because that's when I walked into the house. She was banging on the door, pounding and ringing and everything. But I wasn't going to talk to the what's there to explain. She was another guy in my bed, end of story. So what did I do? Open the door and yelled at her? No. Maybe called the police? No. Slipped out the back door? No. I put on my headphones and started reading a magazine. Eventually, the cops came and ordered her out. It took them a while to get me to open the door, but after I noticed their car lights, I was forced to do it. No big deal. My house is in my name. I can be there if I want to be, so they sent her away. If anyone else had done it, they'd be in jail, but she's your little girl. Max nervously thanked Gardy as she set a cup of coffee in front of him. He wasn't used to this. He was usually in control. He always ran the show, but this time I was the host, and I didn't let go of the reins. Well, on Monday, I withdrew my $12,000 from my bank account. I also canceled all of our joint credit cards, not that I ever used them, and cleaned up. I also went to S&K and got an interview. They were looking to expand and tried to talk me into it for a while, but I wouldn't, because Kelly thought it was too much of a risk. Heck, when I went to them myself, they made me an offer, a good one, too. I accepted it, then I went to work. Walked into my boss's office. Tom, I hate to say this, but I'm leaving. Why? I thought you liked it here. The man was genuinely concerned. In fact, I hate it. You're a good boss, man, but I didn't go to college to be a clerk. Look, I hate to leave you stranded, but I recently caught my wife cheating on me and I have to leave. Really, Kelly? Well, I don't want to let you go. Is there any chance I can talk you out of it? He asked. Sorry, Tom. There's nothing you can do. Thanks for everything. So I left the office, but I saw his slick secretary talking so innocent recently on the phone. The witch was telling someone what she accidentally overheard. Then I went to see Mrs. Hines. Nice shark, isn't she? Yeah, I know she has an assistant helping me with my divorce, but there was another person waiting for me who was hoping Kelly wouldn't get the paperwork at work on Tuesday. Well, they kept trying to get me to talk to her all day, yesterday after the papers were served, and all day today, but I just walked away. I guess your guys were watching me and saw my car. You thought you were going to fix that between Kelly and me. So Max, what was that little incident? Did she sleep with someone else in our marriage bed? Let's see, Max. Why did she cheat? Look, I had choice one. I had to leave them in my bed. Well, she would have liked that a higher sex drive would have been satisfied. Heck, half the fun in the chase is making her want you so badly that she attacks you. But Kelly never liked the little notes, the calls at work, the lunches, the little gifts, a waste of time and money. Oh, I think she was getting revenge on me for cheating on her. No, wait, I never did that. I didn't have an affair while I was dating her or married to her. That can't be true. Oh, she heard about the bachelor party and wanted to get me back for that wait because I spent that night talking to Stacy and Mike after their last fight. Now, why was she cheating, and how did she want to make things right? I tried to give her everything in her emotional and physical needs. What if this was another test to see if I was in love with her, or if I just needed the money she had the money you were spending to support her edible flower store? Oh, I like that. What if she wanted me to find them, get mad, and beat up a guy or run away? Well, that would explain Mike showing up. He was there to keep me from killing the guy or keeping me from running away so she can tell me that she's that happy with me that now she knows I really love her. Because if I was there for the money, I'd be fine if she was committing adultery. But that's just me gone. I didn't play that game, Max, for years. I tried to endure your whole damn family and your trials. But what did I get? Trust, love, respect. No, I came home to see her sleeping with another man so I could prove myself again. Max finally came to his senses. Isn't there something that could save your marriage? I know Kelly genuinely loves you, he almost pleaded. Does she love me, Max? I'm tired, man. I really am. I heard someone open the door of the Waffle Cafe. I don't know what you did, Max, to raise your daughter like that. But I can't live with it anymore, and she's never going to change. She needs someone who can constantly show her he needs her, and I don't have that anymore. She tested me for the last time I loved her, Max, but she killed that. I hope you're all happy now. I stood up. Max didn't move as I put on my jacket. I saw Kelly standing at the counter. She had heard my last remark. She must have been the last person to enter. She stood there as our eyes met. I saw tears in her eyes, a tremor in her chin, but I felt nothing. I took out a 20, put it on the table, and walked into the night.